Hey everybody, how you doing? Dr. Heldman here, Tech Talk Education. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about why you should consider pursuing a career in AI. There's some new information that I think you should take into consideration, and I want to talk about what would be involved in forging an AI career for yourself. So let's get started. Should be pretty interesting. So the first thing I'd like to do is just talk about a little tiny bit of information. I'll put the links in the video below so that you can go look at these yourself. There is a woman, her name is Mary Meeker. She is a venture capitalist, they call it VCAP or VC. She invests in startups and new businesses, things like that. There are lots of technical VC people out there. She's very highly regarded, and she just recently wrote a report on top artificial trends for 2025. Now I'll put the link down here so you can go look at it. It's through Bond Capital Fund. And there is a guy who read this document and summarized it, which I'm going to use rather than this. I just wanted to show you this a little bit more. This is her document, but what we want to do is we want to look a little bit more at what is actually going on, what this thing is pointing to. So let me give you a couple of examples here. Now, when you see this thing CapEx here, that stands for capital expenditure. What that means is that people are going to invest a lot of money into developing data centers and server farms and things like that to handle AI, so it's on the rise. CapEx growth is on the rise. Anyway, this is a document that I think you should look at. There's a summary of it. So this guy is called Nate's Substack, and I'm going to just get out of here. Let's go through this a little bit, because what he's done is he's written a free Substack article talking about the document itself. And I like this because he's actually giving you inside baseball on what she's saying, and it's probably worth reading both to make sure that you understand what it is she's talking about. The point that I'm trying to make here is when Mary Meeker says something, people listen. And so he said here, so Mary Meeker wrecked my weekend. She's an incredible internet legend. She just dropped a 340 slide report on AI. This is her first major public report in 5 years, so she dug in. Let's just take a look at a couple of these things. I'm not going to go into way detail on this because it's a lot, but the slides are pretty cool. So look at AI. This is Chat GPT. This is AI user growth. It's up 8 times. So he says here, unprecedented user adoption, meaning people are turning to AI as their search engines, as a way of solving problems, asking questions, things like that. So she says, for example, ChatGPT hit 800 million weekly active users in just 17 months. This is something that they're calling an unprecedented growth curve. And they say in under 2 years, ChatGPT accumulated 365 billion annual searches. This is a milestone that took Google 11 years to achieve. So that's something to consider. Here's ChatGPT AI user subscriber revenue growth maps. I subscribe to ChatGPT at the base level. I use it an awful lot. It's very good. I like it a lot. There are others that are just as good. I'm not saying it's the thing, but I do use it the most. And so the big 6, here he says, soaring investment in AI infrastructure. The big 6 U.S. tech giants, these would be Apple. NVIDIA has skin in the game because NVIDIA is the company that's manufacturing the graphical processing units, the GPUs, that are used for calling all of this data. At the end of the day, AI is about data, making sense of the data to make decisions about a question. And so NVIDIA is a very huge deal here. So is Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, Amazon, and Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook. Now look, they have spent $212 billion on capital expenditures in 2024. That's a 63% increase. So the sort of idea here that we're looking for is this thing is growing at a record pace. This is growing far faster than the cloud, for example, the cloud build out or other sorts of innovations in technology. They say the NVIDIA installed GPU computing power 100 times plus growth over approximately 6 years. This turned NVIDIA into a $1 trillion company. They're a huge, huge company. So that's the point that I'm trying to make here. CapEx spending at the big 6 tech companies has a 21% annual growth increase. It's really unprecedented. And they don't mention people here. I should say that they don't mention people here like Oracle and like IBM, who also have significant skin in the game. IBM has an awful lot of R&D dollars. They're basically a paid-for company. And, when they do research, it's very, very important. Ditto for Oracle. Larry Ellison, who's the CEO of Oracle, has said that this is his main focus now. He's very focused on AI. So these two documents are worth scanning, looking at the charts, making sure that you understand that this AI thing is a big honkin' deal. This is a big thing, probably the biggest thing in my lifetime in terms of technology rollouts, and I've seen quite a few, but this is the big guy. This is really interesting. Now I want to show you another guy that I like a lot. There's a guy named David Bombal. You can see his name down here in the bottom of the screen, David Bombal. He's a Brit. He has a cybersecurity YouTube channel. He has a lot of subscribers. He's very good. I like David Bombal a lot. But the main thing I'm pointing out here is that he has a guy on that he periodically interviews named Dr. Chuck. And I like Dr. Chuck a great deal because he's into coding. And he is very, very serious about coding. And he is also not in it to become a zillionaire like some coding development companies. For example, here's his website. Everything's basically pretty free. Like he's really into giving away stuff. And I love him for that. And he has written some books. He's done some software and things like that. So he has a PhD in computer science. But the main takeaway here with the Bombal video, which I will also put as a link to this video that I'm creating here, is he is saying that we are in a sea change, meaning that we're going from one ocean to another, we're going from PageRank, which is what made Google a multi-billion-dollar company, which doesn't work. Google really, really sucks these days. I don't think it's very good at all. You're not really getting what you're looking for if you're looking in the Google searches today. What his point is that this has actually changed search forever. So search is changing, and you know that it is because you're getting pinged by everybody. Google and Microsoft and everybody else is wanting to bring you these AI features because everybody realizes that AI is the big sea change in terms of search. And so his little rant about this is very good, and I'll put that link in the video below so you can see that. Okay, now I said all that to say this. Why would you want to get involved with AI? Well, there's a couple of interesting dynamics that are going on here. First of all, a lot of you have a computer science degree. Computer science is essentially a coding degree. It's math and coding. It's an engineering class degree. There's nothing wrong with it at all. However, AI has begun to introduce tools into the various integrated development environments, the IDEs, that allow you to generate the code using AI as opposed to you sitting there and writing it by yourself, and then you can take and massage it and make it go where it needs to go. And I think that it's just going to get more sophisticated. So I don't think that this is something that we need to be concerned about. going forward, we're going to wind up having these AI models doing a lot of the coding work. In fact, they already are. So what does that mean for you as someone that is wanting to, A, go and get a computer science degree, or B, if you already have a computer science degree, you're probably wanting to refashion yourself in some way so that you can fit into this area of AI, because this is the hot area. So in the rest of this slide deck, I'm probably going to turn this into 2 movies because the slide deck's fairly long. What I want to talk about is I want to get you enthused about, okay, I've got what I need, or maybe I don't. Maybe I need to go get all this training, but I know that I want to get into AI. Part of it is so that you can save your job. If you're a coder and you're just doing routine coding work, it could be that you get to a point where a company lays you off. Coders get laid off quite a bit as it is anyway, but the point here is that AI is going to be a sea change in terms of writing code. And so now what do I do with myself? How do I reinvent myself so that I can fit into this? This isn't my first time with this stuff. I can tell you back in the day with networking software, Novell NetWare was the big thing. And then Microsoft came in and started Active Directory. Windows Server basically killed Novell. And so you went through a sea change where you had to figure out something different. The database servers like SQL Server and Oracle and things like that were a sea change. The internet was a sea change. So this isn't new. It's just the quantity of what's going on here, the vastness of what's happening and the speed with which it's happening. So let's talk about how you prepare for an AI career. What should you be thinking about? Now, first of all, the why. Why should I be concerned about an AI career? So AI developers and stakeholders are interested in all sorts of areas in which the technology can be super useful. There's things like healthcare, logistics, finance, media, etc. AI is a continuous process improvement thing, so it's constantly improving. You cannot keep up with all the AI news. It's just amazing how much is transpiring. There are different categories, like generative AI has the ability to draw things. It can write documents. It convert text to speech, TTS. There are autonomous systems that like run your cars. I'm sure we're going to see autonomous flying cabs pretty soon. I think it was Dubai or somebody released a flying cab, an autonomous flying taxi. Probably not something I'd get into because there's not a human being flying it, but that's just me being naive and not trusting the AI, I guess. And then a thing called Edge AI. This is very interesting. So this is on edge devices. When you hear the word edge, what you're thinking about is a device that's sitting there that has some function in life. It's not the entire thing, but it is one thing. And so examples would include smartphones, sensors, cameras, things like that, rather than cloud-based servers, and tons of others. So that's the point here. Now, you really want to start learning AI. There's no doubt about that in my mind. We want to start learning AI. How do we go about doing that? Now, we need to get a couple of the pieces of nomenclature out of the way. So AI stands for artificial intelligence. I'm sure you know about this. It's very old. AI has been around a long time. This isn't new. It's just that the tools and the hardware, the software development capabilities, all these things now have come together to the point where we actually can begin to create some fairly functional AI code. We're not there. We're not able to duplicate the brain. We're not going to have a conscious AI at any point in time until we could figure out how to give it emotions and things like that, God forbid. But it is much more mature than it was even just 40 years ago. Now, ML stands for machine learning. This is a subset of AI. It's focusing on developing algorithms and statistical models that enable machines to learn from data. This is the recipe you have to get in your head. You're going to take a large body of data, you're going to parse that data, and you're going to make sense out of that data somehow. And I will tell you that we want to get this data down. All of the data needs to be boiled down into a range from either 0 to 1 or from -1 to +1. So the idea is that we want to be able to do a statistical snapshot of this data, but we have to prep the data in such a way that we can get it to where we can represent it meaningfully. And typically, because we're using statistical tools to do this, we want to get it reporting somewhere between 0 and 1. Sometimes you'll see -1 and 1, but that's the idea. The idea is we are taking data, we're parsing it, we're using statistics to prepare it, and we are getting it into the system. Now, DL is deep learning. Deep learning uses what are called neural networks. This idea has been around a long time. I can remember buying neural network software on 1¼ inch floppy drives way back in 1994. And I was so excited because I'm like, wow, neural networks are out there. And at the time, the company I was working for was investing itself into what are called expert systems. Today, that would be AI and ML, but back then it was called an expert system. It was an epic failure. It wasn't ready for prime time, but that's neither here nor there. So deep learning is using neural networks. This is a fascinating area of AI and machine learning, and it's also a very complex area. There are some things that you can use this technology for, like natural language processing. I don't know if you've been out to translate.google.com, but this is a place where you can go and you can give it whatever sentence you want in whatever language you want, and it will translate it into another language. It's absolutely amazing. We essentially, not really, but we've essentially broken the language barrier in terms of we can relatively instantly communicate now, which makes it very cool. And then another area is called computer vision, where we're getting computers to look through cameras or photos or whatever and figure out what they're looking at. So it's object detection, facial recognition, image classification, and things like that. Okay, now what do you have to know? Now this is the hard part. And I'm going to be honest with you. If you're not a math nerd, you need to become a math nerd. All of this is based on statistical analysis. Statistics and probability and linear algebra, and maybe a slight bit of calculus. What is linear algebra? This is very interesting. So this is where you take rows of data or even blocks of data, and you have a row of data, like you have items that are all, like they're all tucked deep into one cell. Each is occupying one cell, and it's just one row. It's called a tensor. Or if I have a couple of things, I could do a vector calculation, I could do a matrix calculation. Linear algebra is at the heart and soul of what's going on here. Why is that? Well, because the data that we have is going to be broken out into have different features, and then we're going to label that data. We don't always label the data. There are some ML techniques that use unlabeled data. And then we're going to apply statistics to make sense out of that data. Linear algebra is very, very important for you to know. And you probably studied it way back in high school, and you may not remember much about it unless you have a comp sci degree. Probability and statistics. You've got to get skill in statistics if you're going to get deep into AI and ML. It's very, very important. And then you've got to learn Python. There are other languages out there, like there's a language called R, which is used for statistics. It's really popular. It is not used for deep learning or AI or ML. We're talking mainly, primarily, 99% of the time about Python. You must know Python. You've got to know it. It's the lingua franca of AI development. Do not skip out on the math. You're going to need the math if you're going to get into AI. And if you're like me, math makes me fall asleep. I'm not real happy about it. I've had a lot of math training. I still don't understand it very well. It's not my sweet spot, but I do recognize that I have to know a lot about math in order to work with these computers. Now, let's talk about MOOCs. This is a very, very important point because this is where you're going to get a lot of your training. The acronym MOOC stands for Massively Online Open Courseware. What is that? Well, that is a website where they are offering classes to you, and the classes are mostly going to be low cost or no cost. And these MOOCs are really fabulous. They're very good. And here's the thing. A lot of them are big organizations that are offering these classes. For example, Stanford University has its own MOOC called Coursera. And MIT offers open MIT courseware. And then there's a company called Udemy and a company called Udacity, which was started by Google and Facebook and people like that. There's another company that I like called edX. And so these are MOOCs. Now this is where you're going to get a lot of your AI and ML training. Why? Because you don't have to go sit in a hot classroom somewhere and listen to a professor drone on and on. And you have to go through this huge textbook and do these problems and things like that. It's gotten much simpler. And there is one that I would highly recommend. This guy is the rock star of AI. His name is Andrew Ng. He's a Vietnamese dude. He is, a United States citizen and everything. He teaches at Stanford University. And his course on Coursera is the name of the MOOC that Stanford University started. Now they have a bunch of stakeholders that are playing in as well. His course on Coursera is incredibly popular, and that's the place where I would probably start, although there is going to be a cost for that course. So let's jump out here and take a look at some of these MOOCs and see what they look like. Okay, now there are other MOOCs out there in the world. This isn't at all exhaustive. But the point is that these are places where you can go and get relatively formal university training without having to involve yourself with everything involved with going to a university. And you can see there's some big players here that are working with Coursera. It's Coursera.org, and Illinois, Duke, Google, IBM. A lot of people are playing in the sandbox with Coursera. And what you could look for is I want to learn, for example, I want to learn artificial intelligence. So you type that in the search box. They all have courses on this now. And so there's a bunch of courses out here that you could look at and figure out which one it is that you want to take. They rate them. It's very good. You've got all kinds of good stuff going on here. This is super good. And the Andrew Ng course is out here as well. But now if you're looking at some of this stuff, take a look. So here's Microsoft AI and ML. Here's Amazon Web Services. Here's IBM. IBM is a huge player in this. They're very good for this kind of thing. Let's go ahead and look for Andrew Ng so I can show you his course. Andrew Ng. And it looks like it's this AI for everyone. Maybe, I can't tell if he's involved with this or not. But that's the name of the guy at Stanford that he launched this AI course many years ago now, and it's built. It's very popular. Okay, this is Udemy. Now Udemy prides itself on being a low-cost MOOC. The idea is basically the same. The difference is that anyone can create a course for Udemy. So it doesn't have to be a college. It could just be a content creator and a knowledge leader that creates stuff like this. So let's look for artificial intelligence. Like so, and see what we get. And there's a ton of courses out here on Udemy, and they're all pretty low cost. Like this thing here is $200. The ratings are not that great. I don't know. I'd be shopping a little bit. But that's one of the advantages you get with a MOOC, is that it's not like a university where you're stuck with one or two professors and you're going to go with the content that they want to offer. You have the ability to shop around and figure out what it is that's going to work the best for you. This is super good. They're doing an AWS AI practitioner. That's very good stuff. Okay, this is a very interesting company. So this is Udacity. Udacity is quite a bit more expensive than the others. Back in the day, it was started, I believe, by Google and by Facebook, and the idea was that they really needed engineers, people that were at the keyboards, heads down, writing the code, doing the deal. And so it has evolved from there. And Udacity is very, very good training. So if I click artificial intelligence, for example, I can come down and look at some of the courses that are available for me here. AI programming with Python, introduction to machine learning, naive Bayes classifiers, etc. You're going to get into all that. It's all about this Bayes classifier thing is really interesting. So that's the concept there. And these guys are a little bit more expensive than the others. So if I click this class, let's see, it's $249 a month. Why would I do this? Well, because it's got some street cred, if you know what I'm saying. Like, this is a very well thought of MOOC, and people that graduate from a MOOC like this have really gone through and proven that they know what they say they know. So it's called a nano degree. I love that phrase. The idea is that you're not getting a college degree, but you're getting college level education that is thorough enough to represent a college degree in that particular subject. They call it a nano degree, which is an excellent term for this. That term has been around quite a while. Notice that you would have to know elementary algebra and basic Python. Okay, here's MIT OpenCourseWare. Let's go look for artificial intelligence. These guys are pretty good. It's all MIT stuff. Some of the professors are super good. Some of them are like, nah, okay, whatever. Here is Professor Leslie somebody or other, Professor Tomas Lozano Perez. And so if I selected this is an undergraduate level course. And I could download the course and take it. When they say open courseware, they mean it. It is free. Now, you should be aware that MIT OpenCourseWare has a really robust YouTube channel. They're very, very good at that, so that's something that you might look at as well. And then one of my favorites is edX. I like these guys a lot. A, because they have some really good partners. B, because they're very inexpensive. You can get started for free. One of the things that they've done, they've adopted a model where you can get the education, and if you opt not to get the certification, you can basically do it for free, but if you pay a few extra bucks, you can get a certification. Here's some of the players. Here's Harvard, for example, MIT. You get the idea. These are big players. Harvard, Berkeley, UCal Berkeley, Google, University of Cambridge in Britain, University of Columbia in New York. Lots of good players involved with edX. I like edX a lot. And here's their artificial intelligence program from Oxford. So that would be fun, wouldn't it? Maybe you want to study artificial intelligence from Oxford. So then what would happen is you enroll in it. Let's request more info. Oh, I can't get the cost for this right now. But usually they're quite a bit cheaper than somebody like a Udacity. And so edX is a good way to go. They've got the street cred that it takes. They've got the professors it takes. You're getting the real dealio, but you're not going to college and paying for something super expensive. So that is a MOOC. I think a MOOC is where you're going to get quite a bit of the training that you need. And you're going to need a lot of training because it builds on itself. Once you learn these Python libraries, you learn Python, then you learn these Python libraries, and then you have to learn more about these libraries and more about statistical techniques like naive Bayes and others. It gets heavy, and you just keep going down and down and down and down. This is where these MOOCs are going to come in handy for you in trying to get this knowledge. Okay, now here's the book I recommend. Now, I'm going to ask you guys, I haven't done this before, but you guys that are watching this video, this book is free. I have done classes on this book before. I really, really like this book. His name is Jake Vanderplas. He's Dutch, but he lives here in the United States now. This book has been super helpful to me. It's very approachable. by the average reader. He doesn't go overboard with all of the theory and all of that stuff. He gets you right into it. And the thing that I want to ask you, would you be interested in a series of classes? They would be free. I'm not going to charge for this stuff. Where I go through you, I make movies going through the Python Data Science Handbook and explaining what Jake Vanderplas is talking about. I have found that to be really, really helpful. I've taught this book to high school kids, and they really grasp and really appreciate what Vanderplas is trying to say, and this thing gets deep pretty quickly, so there's a lot to it. Now, there is one thing I want you to know about, and that is that in the book he uses Jupyter. He uses what is called a Jupyter notebook. Notice that it's spelled kind of funny, Jupyter. Jupyter is a way of doing Python online. Google has a wonderful Jupyter site where you can write your code online. So I think that the idea would be I would teach out of Vanderplas's book using Jupyter. I'm not a huge fan of Jupyter, but I would teach using Jupyter because that's the way the book was written. And if you think that you would enjoy that and that's something that you would enjoy learning from, I will give you other things that I have learned from teaching this book that might be helpful for you. You should be aware that this O'Reilly organization is very serious. These guys are good players. Anything that O'Reilly churns out is typically a pretty good book. And the Vanderplas book is free to you. You can get it online. It's a very good book. I really like it. And so that's my offer to you. I would be happy to teach this class. It's going to take a bunch of lessons. We would do that over many, many weeks, but I would be happy to teach this class to you on how to go through this Python Data Science Handbook. I think singularly, this is the book that's going to get you into where you need to go in terms of AI and ML faster than other things. Now, I also want to talk about statistics and probability. You got to have it. I years ago attended a college board. We had a little presentation. They flew out here from Boston, talked to my school district, and the guy teaching the session was like, funny thing, you know what the number one undertaught a college board AP class is? It's statistics. It's not being taught in the schools very much at all. In high school I'm talking about here, which is really a shame because AI, ML, DL, these are built on statistical models. So it's really something you've got to have. And I don't think I've had statistics classes. They're okay. It's not something that I stay up late at night reading about, but you got to have it. You got to have it if you're going to get into AI and ML. Now, there is a YouTube. There are millions of YouTube classes on statistics. Trust me on this. Just go ahead, go to YouTube, type in statistics. You'll be overwhelmed. You'll get hit with every kind of class there is. One guy I like a lot, and his name is Josh Starmer, and he has a YouTube site called StatQuest. Let's go take a quick look at that. So if you just come out here and you search for StatQuest with Josh Starmer, he's got 2 million subscribers. He has an entire machine learning track on his YouTube channel. I have found these to be very, very good. Again, I don't get turned on by listening to people talk about statistics. There are probably people that do. I had a person in a band I was in one time, and she was a saxophone player. She worked for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. NOAA is what it's called here in Boulder. And she had a master's degree in stats, and she liked the R language. But that's not me. But I realized that you have to know statistics in order to be able to get into AI and ML. Okay, so that's statistics. Now, we have to understand the ML pipeline. I'm just going to go a little bit further, and I think I'm going to cut this movie off about halfway through and do a second one because there's just so much detail involved here. Like ML, AI is just boom, it's this mushroom cloud is coming over all of the earth. And here's the thing, because it is so involved and we're building these massive data centers and all this other stuff going on, it's a big subject to get your mind around, and even getting into the nitty-gritty of the technology is pretty ponderous. So there's a lot to know. Here's the basic ideas. So first of all, you do data collection. Now there's two kinds of data. There's other kinds of data as well, but there's two main ones: structured and unstructured data. So structured data is something you're going to get out of a database, like an Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, etc. That's called structured data because we put it in the rows and the tables in a certain format. Unstructured data is a blob O data. It's just data that's thrown in there. Imagine, for example, that you work for the CIA and you're given the cell phone of a bad guy and you need to go in and collect all that data. There are tools that will do that, and the data that you're getting is unstructured. It's not in a database or anything like that. It's just random phone numbers, texts, photos, movies, etc., addresses. So you get your data. Then you do pre-processing. What does that mean? Well, what you're doing is you're figuring out what the data looks like. And let me explain what I mean by that. Now, I deliberately chose this picture of an iris. And the reason for that is because a very famous data set, you can download these ML data sets and play around with them to get accustomed to working with ML. And one of the most popular ones is called irises. So there's some scientist somewhere, a group of scientists, and they measure the leaf. This is the leaf of an iris. There's the leaf of an iris. And then, what did they call that? They measured the width and the length of the iris, put all those numbers down in a database. So now you've got all these iris lengths and widths, and now you want to go in and you want to figure out, you want to make some decisions about what it's telling you about irises. That's a very famous data set that you can download. It's free. You can go download irises. Another one is called Titanic, and this is all of the people that lived or died on the Titanic. There's a huge data set that consists of all of the people that were on the Titanic. And so that, of course, has all kinds of data: the sex of the person, their birth date, did they perish, did they live, where were they from? You get the idea. So Titanic is a very, very popular ML data set. And then there's one called MNIST, which is also popular. So the concept here is I'm going to go grab a data set and I'm going to do something about it. And then when you do that, you have labels. So you have features on this iris. There's the feature of the leaf, and this iris here has two features. First of all, there is the petal, the flower petal itself, and then there's a thing called the sepal. This might be a sepal here. And so the scientist that went out and measured all these things measures the petal length, the petal width. Then they measured the sepal, and that's the sepal length and sepal width. So the features are the sepal and the petal, and then the labels are sepal and petal, and then the numbers go into the data set showing what the widths and the lengths are of these various iris, sepal, and petals. Then what we do is, once we've got this data figured out and we've pre-processed it and we know what it looks like, we're going to pick out a model that's going to work for us. We're going to train the model, and typically the way that you do that is you cut the data set in half or in thirds. There's what's called a training data set, which you submit to the model and have it train on the model to see if you're going to get correct decisions out of it. And then there's the actual testing data set in which you're testing it to see if it's going to work for you as a model. So that means you're going to evaluate it, and then when you're finally happy that everything's happening, you deploy it. Now this is called supervised learning. You can use linear regression, decision trees. There's all kinds of information on how to carve down into a tree, things like that. So there's a lot going on here. Supervised learning means that we're telling it what it has to do, what it has to look for. Unsupervised learning, there's a famous example of that where the ML has to go in and play Super Mario Brothers. We don't give it any information. It has to learn on its own how the game works, and before you know it, within just a couple of weeks, it can beat the game every time. And then there are lots of Python-based libraries. This is a Python world that you'll need to learn with ML. Like there's one called scikit-learn. There's another one called pandas. There's another one called matplotlib. There are several of these libraries that are very fundamental and very important for you to be able to work with. Okay, this is where I think I'm going to stop with movie 1, because there's another bunch to go through, and I don't want to make this into a 2-hour movie. I wanted to make this so it's at least semi-approachable for you. Hope this helps. Please put in the comments if you'd like for me to develop a class, several classes, on using Jake Vanderplas's book. I think that you might really enjoy getting something out of that. It's very, very interesting. And then if you're liking these movies, please subscribe to these movies. Tell others about it. I'm really trying to aggressively grow the channel. I'm not, I don't get paid by anybody. I'm not all that bent out of shape about monetization. I'd love to monetize the channel, but my main thing is I enjoy being a content creator, a teacher, and sharing this information with you. So that said, have a great day, and I will talk to you in episode 2 of the AI ML video.